welcome everyone to this interview with PR consultant Zoe Hiljemark. Hi, Zoe. Nice
Hi,
to connect with you.
hi, Alex. How are you?
I'm good. Good. So you're based in the UK. I think we both were
I am
speakers at an online summit a few months ago. That's how we connected.
correct.
That's how I discovered your work, and I wanted to learn more about PR and to share that with my audience because I don't know too much about it myself.
Thank you for having me. I mean, it's an honor to be here, first and foremost.
Okay. Before we dive into your background and kind of PR experience with
hmm
photographers, I thought maybe I'd first ask you to give us kind of a high level overview of what PR is and how it sits inside or alongside the whole bigger concept of marketing. I see it as a
Mm.
subset of marketing, but I want to get your take on it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's a form of marketing. So marketing is the bigger piece, and then within that, PR is part of it. Um, basically, PR is all about building a positive reputation, building your brand, building visibility, but essentially making people that are important to your business, so your clients and ideal clients, think positively about you and the work you're doing, your business as an entity. And so it's kind of like, I like to say, sort of putting your best foot forward, talking about all the great things that you are doing, sharing your work, obviously, in the case of the photography world, and just getting it seen, getting it visible, and doing your best to, attract people to your business because you're putting forward that, positive appearance. And by being seen in the media, which again is a subset of PR, the publicity side of things. But if you were featured in the media, for example, that gets you visible, and that instantly sort of builds credibility and that know, like, and trust factor as well. So so it's marketing, and that is PR. And then as part of that, a subset of PR is the media publicity side of things.
Okay, that makes sense. And other marketing avenues that we both know, you have SEO, you have networking, which is more closely
hmm
related a bit to PR, paid traffic, which is separate, referrals, word of mouth. I guess
Yeah.
PR, I see SEO, which is a big obsession for photographers, fairly slow. It takes time to build backlinks and more
Yeah.
traffic through SEO, whereas PR feels more immediate, feels faster.
Yes, I think you'd be right to say that, because, of course, if you have a story that's relevant now and you can pitch to a journalist in with a simple email, quite honestly, so in the same day you could potentially be being featured, if it's something that they choose to obviously pick up on. So yes, I think that's what makes PR exciting. You can get instant results. Equally, it can be a slow burn as well because it is really based on a foundation of positive relationships. And those relationships, like any relationships, take time to nurture. So journalists won't necessarily cover the first story that you pitch to them. Of course, they might be interested in what you do and they might check you out online, look at your website, follow you on socials if you're of interest to them. So again, the pitch itself is very important, to sort of kind of get their attention. But yes, genuinely, if they're interested in you, it might be that they kind of are thinking, oh, they could be good for a story in the future. So they might park your details and file your email away somewhere. It doesn't mean that they'll instantly use you as a source or, indeed feature your work. So it can be quick, depending on the story, of course, the timeliness, the newsworthiness of what it is that you're sharing. But it also can be a slow burn, which is why I would always recommend that people kind of try to do PR consistently, to try and focus on getting themselves out there, if we're talking about media publicity anyway, on a consistent basis, because you can have some quick wins and you can have some longer term wins.
Okay. Perfect. I'll pick on those threads a bit later. I
Okay.
just want to take a step back and ask you how did you start and what's your PR experience? I know you work with photographers specifically, but maybe tell me a bit more.
Yeah, so gosh, well, I went to university, studied media and communications, and that led me to PR. PR was part of what I studied. And then, I just knew that I wanted to work in communications in some way, and marketing was fascinating to me. I love writing, and I'm interested in the psychology side of, buying behaviors and all of that stuff. I studied psychology as well at A level kind of thing. But, realistically, I just found my foot in a PR agency very quickly. And after graduating, and just found that I loved it. So I kind of stuck with it. And here I am sort of nearly 21 years later, still doing PR, still doing marketing, still helping small businesses to kind of share, what it is that they're up to, and getting them visible. And that's just what I love to do. I love to support clients in getting out there a bit more, because I think particularly with photographers, they can be the most amazing artists, but they may not be the most marketing savvy, if we should say that. So yes, they don't necessarily enjoy that side of the business, but of course, as you and I know, that's essential. So I love being able to complement photographers, in regards to sort of supporting what they're doing and utilizing my skill set and my expertise to really, get them more visibility. But so I went to university essentially, and I had like 10 years in both agency roles and in-house roles, really sort of learning the trade. And it was at that point, 10 years in, I actually got married and had my first child. And so that was the break-off point really in setting up my own business. So yeah, that was, well, my son's just turned 12. So nearly 12 years ago, set up on my own. But photography didn't find me straight away. I did have a photography client immediately, because the very first client I had was Karen Wiltshire, she's a newborn and family photographer down here in Poole in Dorset, where I live. And she photographed my newborn son. And at that time, newborn photography was fairly new. There were photographers, offering that service locally, but hers just jumped out at me when I was Googling for portrait services. And I just knew that she was onto something there. She had a really strong portfolio of work. She was winning awards like International Newborn Photographer of the Year type awards, and, was really doing some amazing things. And I just thought, I said to her, Karen, when I kind of get off maternity leave, I think we should have a conversation. And, I just put forward some ideas, proposal to her essentially, and she rolled with it, and credit to her, because, it really paid off. And we worked together, gosh, I think consistently for like 6 years at that time. And we've subsequently worked together for periods since as well. But I helped to raise her profile, and she was so good to sort of endorse me to her photography friends. And before I knew it, photography was the only thing I was doing. So it was kind of like it found me really, and I just rolled with it, because I really enjoyed working with photographers and being surrounded by all these incredible images, beautiful pieces of art, and having the amazing, luxury of having the job to promote them and shout about what they were doing.
Okay, very interesting. I think I have a similar background to you, how it snowballed from a unique first client, but with web design, of course. And I also liked what you said about photographers being creative, good at their craft, but not necessarily good at all these other specialties. They're not marketing savvy, they're not necessarily tech savvy and all of that. And they're reluctant. They want to get hired as an expert to shoot photos, to shoot a project or an event, but they're sometimes reluctant to hire experts in other industries, like a PR consultant, like a copywriter, like a web designer.
Yeah.
And we hope now through this conversation to maybe let's dive into that. Why hire a PR expert? How does that person help them get more clients, basically?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say much like, as you say, with regards to web design and copywriting and all of these other things, there are experts in everything, I guess. And the point is, do you want to do things quicker? Do you want to do things better? Do you want to do things more efficiently? And, reasons why clients tend to hire me to actually be their PR support is usually because they either don't want to learn how to do it themselves. They quite frankly either haven't got the time or the inclination, or they just know it's not in their skill set and they'd just much rather be behind the camera. So, doing the creative work, actually delivering. And let's not forget, photography is a very demanding job. You've got to find the clients, you've got to service the clients, you've got to do the editing and the actual shoot, of course. There's just so much to do. So the marketing, does take time. And whilst people, I think it wouldn't be fair for us to sort of say that all creatives are not marketing savvy, because that's not true at all. But Those who are either too busy, like they're already successful, they've got a thriving studio, for example, those kind of people don't necessarily have the time or the desire to do that kind of work. And also, I think there are other people who maybe have the time and have the inclination to learn it themselves. But, when you're doing it for the first time, or you're just finding your feet, you're learning as you go, and you're, navigating this as a bit of a rookie, then of course you might make some really common mistakes, which of course someone like myself, having been through the trenches, if you like, over the years, I know what to do and how to do it well. So it's a shortcut, really, I think, into success, hopefully. So
There's now a bigger topic I have in mind is business positioning, and something that I see often photographers not get right. And there was a text on your website, talking about PR services, and I'm gonna read it now because
okay.
I think it's relevant. It's just a phrase you were saying.
Mhm.
Are you a photographer who feels invisible online? Do you struggle to stand out among the thousands of professionals offering similar services? To me, that phrase also tells the need for proper business positioning, finding
Mm,
the right niche, finding the right target audience. That's how you also stand out and, in the saturated market. I think
yeah.
they both have the same goal. My intuition tells me that positioning comes first. It precedes PR a bit because,
Yeah.
you have to truly know who you want to market before you promote it online through PR. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I would completely agree, and I think that's the foundation, isn't it, of all marketing, knowing what it is you want to achieve, and therefore who you're trying to reach, what you're trying to sell, what you're offering, all of those fundamentals. So yeah, absolutely, because there's no point doing PR just to reach someone.
Yeah.
You need to be very, very clear, really, on who it is you're trying to reach and for what purpose, and that all comes back to your business objectives, and then of course that feeds into your marketing objectives, which feeds into your PR objectives. So it is about being strategic in that sense. Like, you need to know what you're trying to achieve in order, if we're talking about publicity in particular, like which media are you going to reach out to, which would make sense for you to be seen in. There's no point just getting kind of PR anywhere. Yes, you might achieve an article and you've got a link, and then you can share that link and people might go, oh, you've been featured in whatever. But realistically, you're going to get more return if it's a publication that's super relevant to your ideal client. So yes, that ideal client piece is really fundamental.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, it's just a vanity backlink that doesn't translate into actual
Yeah,
inquiries.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So where does one start in getting their name out there? How do they, approach media outlets? What are their options to start, basically?
Well, I always say that local is a great place to start, because I think we all would love, to be featured in national and international publications and have that prestige to be able to say we've been featured in, Vogue or whatever the publication is that's on your, hit list. But the reality is you're a local business first and foremost. You may or may not have a studio. But the point is you have a local area and geographic area that's relevant to you, and you're much more likely to be able to get a feature or mention, an article, a profile piece, an interview, those kind of things in your local newspapers, on your local radio stations, in local lifestyle magazines. So I would always say that if you haven't done anything yet, explore your local media first. And that also sort of links in with like the local networking piece. It's really important to forge connections with people in your immediate network, because you never know who they know. And, it's sort of connecting with people, like I say, in person and online, and sort of building that base of connections, which could prove really, positive and helpful for your business. So connect with local journalists if you can, ideally meet them. But if not, message them. Just simply let them know you exist, what you've achieved, what you're doing. All the better if you actually have a news story that they can actually use. Maybe you're celebrating a milestone in your business. You've been around for 10, 20 years or something. Maybe you're moving and expanding into new premises. Maybe you've got an exciting collaboration with a local charity that you can talk about. Maybe you're launching a new a calendar of local landscapes or whatever it is. You have something that you can actually tell them about. But even if you feel that you're not ready to announce anything and you don't have news right now, it's just making those connections, I think, would be the first step. So I always urge anyone anyone in business, quite frankly, but absolutely photographers as well, to just keep building those positive connections.
And are specific photography niches a better fit for PR? I imagine not all specialties have something to reach to journalists about.
I'm not sure. I would disagree there. I think because I think within your business, even yourself, Alex, you've got a backstory, you've got a reason to be in business. You've got the expertise that you've developed over the years, and I think photographers have got a lot more stories in their business than they might first imagine. So that's often what people come to me and say, "Oh, what's newsworthy about me? I've not got anything to share. I've just got my work." And I always sort of go, I don't know. I think you've got some quite interesting things there. And of course, it's not all about your work. It's what I think photographers forget is that you as individuals are very interesting people. You're creatives at the end of the day. You've got a unique way of looking at the world, a way of capturing images. You've hopefully developed a portfolio that kind of, captures that and people can appreciate your work. So I think it's very easy to kind of think that we're not interesting as individuals and as business owners. But yes, I think that's, again, another perhaps reason why it's beneficial to work with someone externally is that they've got fresh eyes on your business. They can see things that maybe you don't, see those stories that perhaps are lurking there, forgotten about, and maybe they could be the key to getting into the press. So whilst obviously my work is focused on trying to get photography, the actual images featured, it can sometimes just be more interesting to, sometimes learn just about the founder of the business and their backstory and things that have happened in their life and experiences, and even experiences unrelated to photography as well. So in personal life, family situation, health scares, all of these are different little hooks and ways to get into the media. And by doing so, even if it's not first and foremost about your photography, you're likely to still get an opportunity to talk about your photography or the fact that you're a photographer or share your web link. And if that's a backlink to your website, then that's obviously fantastic. And even if it's not, and it's just the URL printed in a print publication, then of course it's very easy for someone to just quickly look you up online. So it's very worth sharing stories that are photography related if you have them, but also not as well.
Okay, so everyone has stories, interesting personal stories, but when you were saying that, I was imagining that some people don't do that from psychological or emotional reasons. They're afraid to put themselves out there. They don't know how to sell themselves, or they just lack the courage, the self-confidence to do that. So sometimes I imagine it's an emotional roadblock, not a lack of information about what they should do.
Yeah, I think you'd be right. And I think what I'm definitely not saying is, bare your soul to the world just for a bit of publicity. That is absolutely not, what I'm suggesting. It's more just being aware of what themes and stories and things that have happened in your business that you're happy to share. But it's kind of like with your social media as well, your social media marketing, you don't necessarily have to, share everything. If you're you've got family, but you don't want to talk about your family, as I don't in my business presence. I might mention that I'm a mum, and I might talk about that I've got 3 kids, and it's been a juggle growing the business alongside juggling family life. But I don't share where they go to school or what details that really, I think personally for me, I would prefer to keep private. We all have different levels of what we're prepared to share and what we're not. But yeah, certainly people can feel like emotionally sort of restricted by what they want to share, and that's totally fine as well. So everyone comes to me with a unique take on that, and we just work with it. It's a case of just being comfortable with what you're sharing. I would say never share anything with a journalist that you wouldn't be prepared to see in print or repeated online. So yeah, it's just about monitoring your own thought processes and thinking what would make you uncomfortable and what would keep you comfortable, and being true to those boundaries, really.
Okay. So then most of or all photography specialties would have something to share that would be interesting to a media, a publication. Have you noticed any differences, however, between photography specialties or niches, or between photographers versus other industries, if you have experience with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, before this whole photography PR sort of niche found me, like I say, some 10 years or so ago, I mean, I was doing PR for lots of different industries. But I would say, my agency life in particular, we had a huge variety of clients. And I think actually the reason I've niched is because as much as I appreciated that experience and enjoyed my work, I really did want to niche down and kind of have that consistency in what I was doing, rather than flitting from luxury powerboats and super yachts, to charities and things. There was a lot of interesting projects that I got involved with over the years, and all of it I'm very grateful for as experience. But yeah, I mean, I think the general premise remains the same. I think photographers have a huge benefit over other types of small businesses in particular, because they have the visual assets, and the media want beautiful imagery, of course, for their publications. And if you have a wide variety of images that you can offer a journalist, then you're already that's a tick in their box. Because I think when I was doing small business PR for not so visually led businesses, the challenge was always that we might have had a great story, but we didn't have a suitable image that really conveyed the essence of that story. Or, the imagery can really, really help you. And indeed, when I have blended features for clients, it can often be pretty sizable, and it double page spreads even, because they've loved the photography that we've been able to submit. The story almost is a small part of it, and it becomes a showcase essentially with a gallery, of images, which is always a huge win, to have such an impactful piece. So I think what photographers do have is that asset, that many don't, and I think you should remember that that's a great bonus with regards to putting yourself out there that others don't have. So use it and make sure people get to see your photography.
Okay, let's say someone is on board. Okay, they're sold on the idea of doing PR and what it can bring them. What mistakes have you seen photographers making over time when they're starting their PR journey?
Okay, let me think. So I think thinking that it's an advert, a PR is not an advert. A PR is what's called earned media. So whereas owned media is an example of like your website, you own it, you control the messaging, you control what's on there, what isn't on there. PR and publicity is all about, leveraging the established networks of publications. But of course, there's a downside. They have the final say. There is an editor who decides what goes up there. And it's unrealistic to think that you will have full control over what is included. So fortunately, on occasion, that might mean that the editor or the journalist working on the piece might get the wrong end of the stick. They might incorrectly, print your name. They might say something that's not accurate. And unfortunately, that's kind of par for the course. It's a bit frustrating. But what I would say is it happens fairly rarely. And as long as you've communicated the information in a clear way and provided all of the details, provided your web link, clearly spelt everything correctly, then those mistakes shouldn't really happen. But I think there's also the risk of, things do go wrong, but also journalists will not give you the final say. They won't give you the whole, we're going to run this piece. Can you, approve it? You don't get that approval. So I think when photographers think that they can control it, they're mistaken, because once the pitch has gone out, once the images are out there, they are literally, it's free, it's out of their hands, out of their control.
I imagine if you have a good connection, a good relationship with the journalist, you can ask them, and they sometimes agree to fix a typo in your name or something.
Yeah, like if something is actually really wrong, and you've put the website link wrong. There are, exactly, and that's
it's in their best interest to fix it as well.
Right? Of course, but we're just talking minor things here that generally you just have to go, okay, that wasn't great. They called me, director when I was actually, a photographer or something. Just silly inaccuracies happen. So I think the point I'm trying to make is that it's the control element is gone, and trying to control the media is pretty much impossible. But at the same time, like I say, you have that opportunity to present the information correctly in the first place. The other thing I would say is not allocating time to this, because if you are going to DIY PR, do it yourself, you really do need to be realistic about the time it takes creating the story in the first place. Creating a cohesive kind of pitch. It needn't take long. It can be simple. It depends again on the story and the scenario. But if you just think shooting a couple of emails off is going to be enough. It probably isn't. The reality is most emails get dismissed, forgotten, ignored, and there's a certain degree of follow-up required. I've definitely landed many, many features over the years purely off the back of a follow-up rather than an initial pitch, because maybe it was seen the first time, but the journalist in question was kind of working on something, or they were going to come back, and we all know what our inboxes are like, and things are soon forgotten and disappear. So yeah, I think it's forgetting that this does need some conscious effort, dedicated time towards it. And also I think a mistake might be to think that it's easy, because it isn't easy to land essentially what is free editorials. Why should these publications honor you with space in their publication if you're not advertising with them? Arguably, they're not making anything, out of it for themselves. Hence why you need to have a newsworthy angle. That's the hook. That's why they might be interested in actually featuring you in the first place. But really, unless you're an advertiser, it's not necessarily in their interest to feature you, and they might be obligated actually to feature their advertising supporters. So yeah, I think you've got a bit of a battle to get featured. So to think that you can just pitch someone and you might be in the media like the next day is potentially unrealistic. But again, it's all on the merit of the story. So you could surprise yourself too.
You mentioned a word there, which is free. You get free exposure, free editorial something. Are there cases where it's not free, where the publication asks for something in return? I'm not saying financial compensation. I'm saying, I don't know, a contest, a giveaway or something.
Yeah. So largely, I talk about free because that is ultimately the goal, is to secure free publicity in the sense that no money exchanges hands, unlike an advert or an advertorial, where ultimately it's an editorial, but it's actually like an advert as well, So that's a paid piece of media. Free, not all the time. You could offer a competition prize, and that affords you then in exchange like a half page in a magazine talking a little bit about your business, but that's something I've negotiated for clients before as well. But yeah, largely free. These publications don't charge because they want great content. But the downside as well is that if you secure a piece of coverage in one publication, they might request exclusivity. And actually, that's fair enough. And you'll obviously need to honor that if that's something that you agree with, because they want to have unique content that's going to attract the right people to their publication. So when you're pitching, you need to be mindful of that. And in fact, it might be worth offering an exclusive to like your first choice, top tier media. And then if they don't run it, then you can pitch it to somebody else. But blitzing it out to everybody at the same time might not be the right move in a lot of cases, because then, those top tier publications might think, oh, well, if it's gone to everyone, we don't want to run it. But yeah, largely free, in the sense that it only takes your time and effort. And obviously, the journalist puts in the effort on their side, but there's no money exchanging hands, which is why it's, achievable for even small business owners.
Okay. Back to your previous answer where you spoke about how it takes effort and you don't get full control over the results, and photographers often have that wrong expectation. That also sounds like SEO sometimes, when you're hunting for a backlink or you're trying to do guest posting or something like that, you also don't always have full control. So how does SEO sit alongside PR, basically? How do you see the difference?
Well, more and more I see SEO and PR working really closely together because they're all working to the same objective. And whilst I've traditionally been known as a PR consultant, it's more recent years, and the last 5 years or so, I've actually started introducing sort of the SEO copywriting element into my business, writing blogs for clients and things like that, because I see all of it as being very much in alignment. They need to be working in tandem to work effectively. What's fantastic about PR is, as you've said, you could potentially get a backlink to your website, and backlinks are fantastic for SEO. Equally, making a great impression with having a lovely website that functions well, but also looks great, is easy to navigate, talks highly about you and your services in a way that's really compelling and persuasive. And the SEO elements in regards to your website, as you well know, Alex, is all about, getting more visible in search engines and getting more visible online, being found by people who are searching for what you are selling. So I think I see them working very much in tandem, to the point where my actual service is very much about, yes, the PR piece and the publicity side, but actually also encompassing the importance of content and creating blogs for clients and optimizing those from an SEO perspective, and really supporting the website as the hub of your business. And as I say, it's that balance between the owned media, your website, and that earned media, and working in tandem together.
And I think in writing content and blogging and for SEO, I guess that storytelling part also comes in here, but both in PR, outreach, but also in the content that photographers can create on their website, personal stories.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, storytelling's become a bit of a buzzword, and I'm not, I don't like to splash it around. But yeah, I mean, that is a word and a phrase that does tell what it is. It is about telling stories about you, your business, as we touched on earlier. Stories that, you might not even think of stories, but, sharing what makes you and your business unique, your perspective, how you create your art. There's so many stories to tell. And of course, you also in your content want to talk to the mindset of your ideal clients. What stories are they telling themselves? What do they need to know to invest in your services? And, why might they invest in your services, giving them the reasons for that. So your content, your blog, I mean, I'm so, in praise of blogging as a strategy, because there's so much scope to really cover all bases, really. And to hook people in so many different ways, and to attract them to your website. And then the theory goes that once they're on your website, if it looks good, functions well, they liked your work, then pretty much, it's a done deal, hopefully.
Yeah, and if they found you from good sources, they're already warm traffic. You don't need to do a lot of convincing through the website if it's good enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for someone who doesn't know a lot about PR, like me, I kind of see it, I guess, in my mind as in terms of a traditional PR, which is press coverage or something like that. But these days, a lot of it is on social media as well. How is PR befriending social media in today's kind of fast
Yeah, I mean,
pace?
I think it's all one of the same, really, because everything you're putting out on social media is all with the same objective of, creating a positive vibe around your business, making people think of you in a certain way, portraying, what you're doing in a positive light. That said, I don't actually, as a service provider, provide social media services. It's not something that I'm passionate about. So I've kind of parked that. I used to do a little bit of social media content for clients, but there are people who are far more passionate about it than I am, and I don't do that in my business. But you're right to say it is absolutely part of the piece. I think the risk is a lot of photographers do just rely on social media. But again, as we've sort of touched on with the fact that you don't own those channels, there's always that inherent risk that the algorithm will change, as it does regularly, as we all know. And, the game changes then, and you have to just try and stay visible. And I feel like that's why I prefer to support clients with more long-term, more like the website is the foundation of your business, as I've already said. And I feel like that is much better. It's a much better use of your time and effort to invest in that than throw all the eggs in one basket with social media. That said, there will be photographers listening to this who perhaps only do social media, and they do it really well, and it drives traffic and business and inquiries. So hats off to them. But I think that you need a strong foundation with a great website that's well optimized. The social media plays a part, of course it does, and hopefully it does drive traffic. But in my experience, looking at Google Analytics and seeing where traffic is actually coming from, social media really drives relatively little traffic, I would say. And therefore, I would much prefer to support a client in creating content and PR pieces that actually drive organic traffic and boost that visibility, for the long term as well, because pieces of content like on your blog, PR pieces, they're never going to get taken down. They're going to be working for you for the long term. So that's also a benefit over social media. But you're right to say social media is totally part of the bigger PR piece, really.
Okay, and any traffic you do get from social media, same for me. I'm looking at Google Analytics dashboards, and even if social media traffic is high, the bounce rate is also very high and conversions are very low for it. It doesn't, it's more ephemeral traffic, and it
Yeah.
doesn't compare to quality backlinks or to having a newsletter or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so exactly that. And I think within the client work that I do, it isn't just about pitching to the media. It is about, as I say, creating the blogs and the content for the foundational piece, which is your website, but also using email marketing, supporting clients with creating, just a means to get the word out there. So building an email list is something I really encourage everybody to do and to invest in as soon as possible. And to keep building your own community, because it touches on that piece about, relationship building and building a network of, fans and people who like your work. And that's a really important part of the PR piece as well.
Okay. Let's shift focus to the website in general, which is more of my comfort zone, something you just mentioned. If a photographer wants to kind of support a PR strategy, working with you or on their own, do they need to make any specific changes on the website to support that? I'm thinking client testimonials or a press page or anything like that.
The more they can do, the better in that regard. Because I think, having some key pages like your about page, talking about what it is you do, can absolutely be complemented with a press page, press articles in the press, whatever you want to call it. But if you have been featured, then absolutely shout about it. You should have links if there's online articles that you can link to and make those active links. You can feature mastheads of publications potentially if that's something you want to do. So as seen in, and if you've got a few, obviously that looks quite impressive on your homepage and indeed listed throughout your site. Client testimonials, obviously a big part of the PR piece as well, in the sense that, we trust endorsements from people like ourselves, and, we're always looking for that credibility piece, that confirmation that, you're someone worth doing business with. So I think it's just about promoting your wins, talking about the great things that you're achieving and doing. And like I mentioned, if you're collaborating with someone or, you're doing something positive in the local community, like make sure it's on your website. I think many clients I've worked with sort of think that, we're doing the PR outreach, and then forget that they should actually have something about that story on their website too. So we always look to, make sure that everything's working in tandem. But definitely an in the press kind of page is useful, because quite honestly, if journalists want to check you out, they're going to go to your website. So you say you've pitched them a story, or you've positioned yourself as someone that as an expert, and that they should interview you because you're the leading expert in this niche. They're going to want validation of that. They're going to Google you. They're going to look at your website. They're going to see what other media exists out there about you. If you've got a nice in the press page with proof that you've been quoted as an expert in this very topic that you're claiming to be an expert in, then of course that helps them be convinced. And so
and the featured in section or
exactly.
a dare sheets page with examples from publications with your photos or stuff like that.
You just have to be careful about copyright, because of public print publications, any kind of media have copyright over that content, even if you supplied the text, you supplied the images. And of course, they should credit you for the copyright of the photography. But you need to be careful with that. There's a right way and a wrong way to, publish your press wins. What I would say, just to be sort of succinct, is that you can't just take a picture of a publication, a magazine, for example, and take a quick snapshot on your phone and then just post that online, because the copyright is belonging to the magazine. But all the better really for just linking directly to online articles, because it takes the person directly from your press page to the actual publication where they can view it in full.
Okay, perfect. Makes sense. Have you noticed a difference between photographers selling services, selling their time, like maternity photographer, wedding photographer, versus photographers selling products? Not like wedding albums. I'm saying calendars or, fine art prints, books. Yeah. Is there a difference in terms of PR outreach, or it's just,
there is, because like you say, the output is different. So they are trying to, I've got a client who, fine art wildlife photographer, who's got beautiful books, coffee table type books that he sells, but also fine art prints. That's what he's trying to sell. But also, when you're selling a service like your actual photography services or safari guided photographic safaris, then of course that's a service. So there are different ways to pitch, depending on what that is, whether it's a service or a product. What I would say is if you have products, then you can potentially get featured in gift guides. So Christmas gifting is a huge opportunity for product-based businesses. Lifestyle magazines and publications do gifts for under £50, gifts for under £100, those kind of things. And if you can get your products in there, then that's an instant win. But if you're actually trying to sell your services, like you say, newborn photography services, I think for me that's slightly different because it relies more on the storytelling that we've been talking about, more about sharing your images, but telling people about the session, maybe about you and how you developed your unique style. So yeah, it does take a slightly different approach, but yeah, for certain clients, I actually have products and services to try and sell. So
and for both products and services, do publications sometimes engage in affiliate partnerships where, the photographers, if they get clients from the publication, they can give them a commission or something like that?
That is more an emerging sort of thing.
Marketing,
yeah,
outreach,
like affiliate links. Yeah, publications, if there's an affiliate link that they can then, earn revenue from clicking, sharing that particular link. Yeah. It's not something I get involved in, to be honest. It is out there in the industry, and it does make it very hard, to get cut through if you haven't got an affiliate link that you can share with a journalist. So yeah, it is changing the game slightly, but it's not actually something I'm engaged with regards to the photography PR world.
Okay, good. And photographers, I assume, are better off just kind of looking for continuous media coverage as opposed to just doing a one-off campaign, as with other marketing strategies, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, consistency is obviously the goal, I would say. But I mean, being realistic, not everybody, especially small business owners, solopreneurs, people who are just doing all of this themselves as well as running the business, you're not likely to be regularly pitching the media. I think the thing is, this, as I said, this all takes time. So you've got to be fair to yourself and, what is realistic. But if you did have, a story that was timely, then of course, mention it and do as much as you can with it. If you've got an exhibition or a launch or a new book or whatever it is, that's when you would blast, your PR effort out there and, try to make an impact. But if you can sustain some kind of baseline visibility in the media, then that would be perfect. Because what we're trying to achieve, I guess, is that kind of familiarity, building that know, like, and trust, like we've said. And you kind of want people to say, oh, gosh, I'm seeing you everywhere, or I heard you on that podcast and, oh, then you were in this magazine. And it's kind of just building up that portfolio, really, of pieces that allow
you stay top of mind to
top
people.
Of mind, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, it's that continuous effort. I guess only 5% of their business is actually taking the photos, shooting, or editing. The rest is running the business. But
yes, there's a lot to do. So yeah, hence why this isn't probably something that every photographer out there is doing regularly. But yeah, if you can, it would be great.
Okay. So an extra question I'm trying to sneak in is, there's no interview these days without talking about AI. So what are your thoughts on AI tools? How can it complement photographers' marketing work?
So, like everybody, I was a bit like, "Ooh, how?" When it first emerged, like, how's this going to change the game? Output wasn't great, particularly right at the beginning when people didn't know how to prompt effectively. And I think there's a lot more intelligence out there now around prompt engineering and kind of how to get the output that you're after. So for me, I think it's a really positive thing, particularly for the marketing side, although I know photographers are using it for editing and speeding up kind of some of those really mundane processes in the business as well. But with marketing, yeah, I mean, I think it's a marketing assistant, if you like, why not use it? And I see it as a way of being more efficient in business because it's freeing up time, perhaps through just, creating ideas for your content. And even helping you to outline content. I wouldn't really recommend going so far as actually literally copying and pasting blog articles, write me a campaign for my email newsletter, write me a press release, etc. But ultimately it is a massive, massive shortcut. And for small business owners, you can move forward in a much quicker way than without AI. So I think it's exciting. And, I'm using it in my own business, but again, just in a way that means that I'm being more efficient overall. Really, it's not about trying to replace the need to create engaging content. And I think photographers and other businesses, fall down when they so obviously have just copied and pasted from a prompt like, or prompt output or ChatGPT, something with full of emojis when normally they wouldn't ever use emojis and things like that. I mean, I think it's really noticeable. So I would urge anyone who is doing that to maybe think, would I actually write like that in real life or speak like that in real life? And I think just use it, but use it, with a bit of caution. But I think it's exciting. I know a lot of photographers out there are kind of worried about it and worried about the impact of AI image generators and all of that. And who knows that, we may be all regretting the emergence of AI in a few years when, problems arise. But I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go in the future. But I think it's a shortcut for people who otherwise wouldn't have the budget to do this with somebody on their team, wouldn't be able to outsource it. And I know a lot of photographers who are finding that it's helping them, craft social media posts in seconds rather than taking them half a day to kind of come up with something.
Yeah, I think so. That's what I've heard as well. And that's what I do myself. Content creation, brainstorming, strategizing, that's the sweet spot. It's definitely not a tool you'd use to choose media publications or outreach destinations. That's something you need to do locally. And
I mean, you can actually say, to ChatGPT and others that, what are the media publications that would help me reach, my ideal client? And then you would put in some information about it. It might give you some ideas, but I just would, again, word of warning, sort of don't trust everything it spits out and absolutely make sure these are real publications, because it's crazy how it just makes stuff up. So, you need to verify the information.
Okay, so for the near future, it's much better to work with a PR expert like you. So what's the process like for a PR project? What should photographers prepare? What's the usual timeline? What does a project entail usually?
Well, typically I get approached slightly too late than would be ideal, in the sense that someone might say, I've got an exhibition launching in a week, and that kind of thing. So I think it's being mindful of timelines, being very mindful of what's called lead times with media. So publications work months in advance, 6 months in advance sometimes, depending on the publication. But it's important to be realistic that you need to be starting your promotion early. So I think what photographers need to bring to me is enough time to actually get some work done together, and also know what the story is. And if they don't know what they're trying to promote, if it isn't something as clear as an exhibition or a book launch or something like that, or an award win, then of course we might need to flesh the story out together. But if it is a specific event that's got a timeliness to it, then of course more time to be built into the plan would be ideal than I often have the luxury of. But yeah, I mean, having the mindset around being comfortable with the fact that you aren't in control, like we talked about earlier, I think is good. I think come with the mindset of, let's just see what can come out of this, and accepting that nothing may come out of it. I cannot guarantee anybody any press coverage because I'm not the editor of the publications that we're reaching out to. So I always put that disclaimer in when I speak to anyone about working with me. But I've never actually failed to achieve, results for clients, I must say that. But, there's always that, element of we can't control this and we have to be okay with that. But the process really just generally looks like me sort of, once the work is agreed, agreeing to chat. I interview them in a sense to really pick out the key pieces of information that I feel might be relevant and useful. They provide me the imagery, usually through a medium of Dropbox, or we transfer or something. Once those assets are all collated in the way that I want them collated, that's how I would then share them with the media. We would create a bio, a press pack if needed. There's lots of kind of pieces that we would put in place. And then from there, it's really leaving it to me to kind of roll the story out and obviously the media research involved, and making those connections with journalists and seeing what happens. But yeah, results wise, it would be obviously a success if we've landed press coverage, if we've got online mentions, backlinks, that would be great. But yeah, I think it depends. It's unique on every situation, and every client comes to me with something different.
I appreciate the honesty when saying that you cannot possibly guarantee results sometimes, because it's like me in my work as well. But you cannot control what a journalist does. But it's the way I see it is it's still a numbers game. When it comes to outreach in general, you have to maybe approach multiple journalists or multiple publications and get results from one, and it's increasing your luck surface area, right?
Yeah. Yes, I would say so. And I think that's true generally. I mentioned that strategy of holding something back as an exclusive, and that is one way to approach it. But generally, if it's like a local news story, you would push it out to several local media types, whether that be radio, possibly TV. There are podcast shows that have a local focus or a community focus. So, there's lots of different formats in which you can get your story out there potentially. So, yeah, it is a bit of a, chuck it out there and see what sticks, really. But at the same time, if there is a particular publication that would be your dream, then of course we take a slightly different approach. But yeah, it is a numbers game, and it is, as I said, about follow-ups as much as it is the initial pitch as well. So again, it's just increasing the chances of you being seen. And if you are, of course, in a relationship with a journalist whereby they know of you and, they're supportive of you, or perhaps have been in the past, then your name is going to stand out more in their inbox than if you were an unknown. So again, that's where the relationship building comes in. Challenge half the time is getting your email actually opened in the first place. And then once it's been opened, are they going to read it? And then when they read it, are they actually going to think about, featuring you? So there's a lot of barriers to entry with this. So yeah, but I would say that it's really exciting now. I mean, far more so than, say, when I started in PR 20 odd years ago, in terms of the plethora of potential publications. Of course, we've got online media now, we've got podcasts, there's so many more outlets, so many more niche blogs, that you could feature on. And there may be fewer print publications perhaps, but I don't know, the print industry is still exists, perhaps not in the same form as it was 20 years ago, but I'm excited about that link between the PR and the SEO working, and the backlinking and building that authority in tandem. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities in my mind.
Okay, well, with that, it's a good point to end. This was awesome. Zoe, you've been generous with your time and everything you've shared. I can think how this was eye-opening for some photographers who don't know too much about PR in general. If someone is looking for a PR consultant tomorrow, where can they reach out to you?
Well, my website, zoehiljemark.com, would be the best place to come and find me. I am on social media at Zoe Hiljemark on all of the key platforms. But yeah, my home is really my website, and my emails that's where you'll find me. So yeah, come and reach out to me there if you'd like to chat further. But thank you so much for your kind words there, Alex, and I've really enjoyed talking to you about this.
Likewise. I appreciate it. Thank you, Zoe. Bye.
No worries. Thank you.